Hey everyone, and welcome back to Bridging the Gap. Make sure to leave a like on this video down below and subscribe. My name is Alvin. I lean right on most issues, and I'll be representing the Republican side.
My name is Luke. I lean left on most issues, and I'll be representing the Democratic side. Hey guys, so in this video, Alvin and I will be giving you our bipartisan takes on the future of Kamala Harris, the I guess we could say the former leader of the Democratic Party. You know, she was the presidential candidate, obviously, and yeah, what her future could be in American politics.
Yeah, so of course, Kamala Harris sort of came from a nobody to be picked by Joe Biden to be the Vice President of the United States. And then eventually she also became the nominee for president in 2024, although it was a failed run, losing to Donald Trump at the end of the day. She now really has three major options that she could be shooting for, and they're not exactly mutually exclusive. One, she could run for president yet again in 2028. She still has a lot of fans in the Democrat Party that think that this time around she might have just been unlucky and ran in too bad of an environment. And a lot of people also think that she saved the Democrats from losing in a generational landslide. Then you have the path where she runs for governor for California, her home state, where still has a lot of ties, and she would have a lot of advantages in running for governor there. And from there, she could also launch another presidential campaign, which is why I said that these two paths are not exclusive. And lastly, she could just retire, I guess, into irrelevancy. But we'll be talking about the three paths in this video.
Yeah. So which path would you like to start with here,
Let's
Alvin?
start with president. I think that's the biggest thing that would affect the most amount of people watching this
Yep.
video.
Okay. So obviously Kamala Harris, she had a failed run for the presidency. In the very, very early 2028 polling, Harris is in the lead. We'd like to know, for the Democratic primary. Um, Part of this is just because, recency bias. She was just the Democrats' nominee. She's the most recognizable name up there, so of course she's going to appear by the top. Um, so that makes perfect sense to me. I do think there is a path for her to come back in 2028. As you mentioned before, I think there are pretty strong arguments to say that, like, no matter who Democrats put up, they were basically doomed. Biden kind of placed them in a very awkward position, like Kamala Harris in a very awkward position by making her start her campaign so late. And I do think she ran a pretty good campaign, all things considered. Um, but and she prevented us losing by much more than we did. But yeah, I just think across the planet we've been really seeing, like, in democracies all over the world, that incumbent parties have been getting shellacked. And in the US it wasn't as bad. And I think in part of that, I think could part of that is thanks to Kamala Harris to some extent. At least in my opinion.
Yeah, I discussed that at the top of the video. And looking at our 2028 tier list that we did a long time ago, I guess not that long ago, but still a few weeks ago, we had Kamala Harris in the B tier along with a lot of these more generic candidates. And I think the reason for that is that if she were to run for president, she would have some distinct advantages, but also some very big disadvantages that stop her from being in the A tier and above. And her biggest disadvantage, of course, would be that she is already a one-time loser. And losers in politics are generally seen as sort of unable to represent the party mantle at the top level unless they have proven themselves to win more recently than when they lost, right? Because if you're able to win, you sort of just wipe out the loss from before. But other than that, all the really successful presidential nominees that we've seen, at least on the Democratic side, come from winners and not losers. On the Republican side, of course, you had Trump sort of break that with the 2020 election loss and then going into 2024. But the difference with that is that most of his base believe that he won, meaning
Mhm.
that he could easily survive a primary, right? But Kamala Harris, she would be thrown into the fire in 2028 unable to have that little, skate to the finish line primary that she did in 2024, where she sort of just avoided any real opposition, right? She had small opposition, but didn't really exist at all. And in 2028, she would be faced with a barrage of questions from her peers, like, you lost and gave Trump the ability to do all these things, and why should we let you do that again and just lose to JD Vance, right? We have a lot of people that would likely be more electable than you. And those are very valid questions, I think. But the good thing about her is that she has the ability to raise a lot of money, and she already has that apparatus from running at the top of the ticket. She's, of course, being on a vice presidential ticket once and then a presidential ticket yet again gives her a lot of leverage in terms of her networking with donors and things like that. However, maybe donors are less hesitant to donate to her campaign knowing that she's a one-time loser, as they often try
Mm.
to put their money more into campaigns that are proven winners.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, just like a little bit of a counter argument, I would say, is that I mean, Harris running the general in the general election against Trump, that alone eh, is shows that she is capable of facing some opposition and some tough questions. Because I mean, obviously, I believe the
True.
general election itself and running a general is definitely more difficult than a primary election. Her actually doing that, and as you said before, like building those connections, I think would be beneficial for her going into a primary. And I think it also helps. Something that also helps um, is that the party isn't really putting too much blame on her for losing. I think, this is in stark contrast to, say, Hillary Clinton, for example. I think after she lost in 2016, the party placed a lot of the blame on her. Now it feels most of the blame is just on Joe Biden, and his failures. So Kamala has I think she's kind of just like disappeared from that focus and that blame game for the most part, at least. Like, and the fact that the Democratic elite, like the party leaders, aren't really attacking her much, I think it does put her in a pretty decent position to be a decent challenger in 2028. So yeah, there's definitely a path for her. There's of course a chance that, maybe Democratic voters want something new going into 2028, like just kind of a fresh slate out of the Biden and Trump eras. But I think there's she's an option. So yeah, like if she wants to run in 2028, she'll have a decent shot. And as we see in the polling, she has somewhat of a base still, so she can use that to her advantage.
I mean, I'm going to push back a little on the idea that running a general election's harder than running a primary. Actually, I think running a primary is harder when, in 2028, you're going to see the Democrat field potentially flooded by 20 plus candidates uh, throwing their hat in the ring. Coming out on top, I think, would be harder, actually, even with the previous mantle. I mean, Biden emerged from the previous primary alive with and I mean in 2020, by the way, with that former vice president title, but really he only did that barely. He almost lost to Bernie Sanders, and he was only able to jail with the entirety of the Democrat Party really coalescing behind him to push Bernie out. And if you look at all these people, I'm not sure if they would be willing to throw their hats all behind Harris with that loss, but regardless, I think we should probably
Yep.
turn to the 2026 California gubernatorial election, which
Yep.
already has many people, likely going to run, and just so many people already in this race. The real, you know, the real election here is really in the Democrat primary because of how blue California is. So the Republican primary is generally a bit useless here unless Trump somehow gets like a 70% approval rating. We're not going to be seeing Republicans take California. And so, really, Kamala Harris would be more focused on winning a primary, which she has never done. However, uh, this primary would be a lot easier for her to win than, for example, a presidential primary. She already has major ties to the state of California, and being such a no national figure, I think she would probably cruise to the top.
Yes, I would definitely agree. I mean, she has um okay, well, I will say Yes, there's obviously a lot of candidates in this California race, including statewide officials, the lieutenant governors. In seems like Katie Porter, former representative and progressive, could jump in. But yes, I do agree. I think Kamala would be able to win the California governorship quite easily. Again, I think she has her own firm little base, and the fact that the primary would be so split, I think that gives her an advantage. But yeah, there is also there's been like brief talk about polling and stuff. In the immediate polls of people actually in the race or thinking about getting in the race, excluding Kamala, it is pretty divided overall with Katie Porter at the top. But um, if you scroll up on that page, also there's a bit on there should be a bit. Wait, yeah, keep scrolling up.
There
But
you
there,
go.
yeah, there should be a bit on like testing Kamala among Democratic primary voters. Um, there, that little visual there. So yeah, among the Democratic primary voters, would they be interested in supporting Kamala Harris for the governorship? They say like very likely and likely support is pretty high. I mean, combined, that's what, like 72% of Democrats would be interested in backing Harris, if she ran for governor. I think I mean that's one poll very, very far out from the California governor's race. But the option is very open for her if she wants to get back into politics quickly. Now, one little asterisk is like technically she could go for governor and then go for president, but I don't feel that path is too likely because I feel like that could be seen as a little bit of a betrayal to voters because you elected them, you were elected to be governor for 4 whole years of your state, and then 2 years in you're running for president. I don't I mean, I don't know. I'm sure governors have done it before, senators have done it before, but I don't know. There's different ways to look at it. But I have a feeling that if she does go for governor, that'll just be something she sticks with. I think if she goes for governor, she likely will not go for president, but you never know. Yeah, that's just my 2 cents.
Well, I would like to put another asterisk, and this one's going to be on the poll because the poll is conducted in October. And so I think that has huge ramifications on this poll because
Hmm.
voters here are asked if Vice President Harris was not elected in November, would you support her for governor? And if you poll the same question right now, would you support Kamala Harris for governor? I think these numbers would likely be lower because at this time, you have a lot of Democrats really full supporters backing Kamala. I would argue that this is actually quite low of a number. In an October poll, when your most Democrats here, 90+% are getting ready to vote for Kamala Harris at in the next 2 weeks, right, for president. So really, you only have, yeah, 72% seems big, but that's only 72% when she's the party head. When she's not the party head, this is likely going to go down significantly. I'm not sure how much it would go down, but it could be below 50%. It could be even lower than that when you have other candidates starting to attack her for her loss. And, I'm sure a lot of the people running against her would like to attack her for her loss and blame her for losing to Trump, even if it's not her fault. I mean, I personally think it's mostly not her fault. It's maybe 25% her fault because of she doesn't have those Midwestern appeals to win that
Yeah, yeah.
270 route across the Rust Belt, but she still really was in a very unfavorable natural environment. She couldn't do much more than she tried. So yeah, it's I would just like to highlight that part. But I guess the third, real path here is just to retire, and I'm not sure that would be much better for her legacy. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, she could just get out of politics, but I mean, like I don't know. I don't know if she does that because relative politician wise, she's not that old. Like she's what, like around 60 years old. I mean, I feel like average age for like a senator is like 70 something. So if she wants, she could stick in politics, and I think she is still perceived as quite young for a politician. So I definitely think there is room if she wants to continue her political career. If she stops, though, I mean, I don't think her legacy is too bad. I think she like I mean at least in my perspective I think she did a fair job given the tools she had. She attempted to rally the Democratic Party and she did a decent job of it, but unfortunately for her it was not it did not end up being enough. So I mean I think there is you know there is I do have some respect for her in the fact that she was able to rally the party in the wake of Joe Biden's horrible debate performance and kind of just and sort of like toward the end of his presidency it did kind of seem like less and less was going good for Joe. So yeah, I think her kind of she did kind of save the party from a worse loss, I will say. And I respect her for that. And I think lots of higher level Dems and Democrats who understand politics would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty obvious that Democrats really didn't have much of a person to nominate. I mean, a lot of people uh, didn't want Kamala to run. However, I mean, what choice was there really once Joe dropped out so late? There was not enough time
Hmm.
to really mount a real primary. Some people were floating the idea of, a very quick primary at the Democratic National Convention, but that would have been likely even messier for the Democrats, I would say, and maybe make them do even worse. Coming out of the fire would have been if not Kamala more damage, it would have been someone else that had no introduction to the national scene. So both of those choices would have been likely pretty bad, even if you get someone that like Josh Shapiro would have big support in Pennsylvania, for example. I'm not sure if they could cobble together enough support in the rest of the Midwest to, push themselves over. And who knows, there could have been some skeletons in a lot of people's closets that would have been uncovered in those last 100 days of the campaign. So, really difficult decision for Democrats. But look, Kamala Harris really has three major paths. She could run for president, she could run for governor, and then maybe president, or just sit out of politics and perhaps pursue a very lucrative lobbying career or something of that sort,
Hmm.
where she would definitely earn a lot of money. But yeah, we have this short little video for you guys. Any last words, Luke?
Um, I mean, just one last thought I've had
Yeah,
is that I do think she would be like I think the most likely outcome, in my opinion, is that she ends up running for governor of California.
agreed.
Yeah, that's just what my gut tells me because I think um I could see that her wanting to let someone new try for the presidency in 2028, considering her loss. But I think she still wants to stay in the fight. And I think her operatives and like political people around her and a lot of her supporters seem to suggest that she wants to stay in politics. So I reckon that that'll lead her to the California governorship. But I
Yeah,
mean, 2 years to find that out. So we'll see.
you're reading this very closely to how I'm reading this. A lot of these people are around her do not blame her for the loss. They blame really the environment. They blame Joe. So, that's going to lead them to want to run for governor. I mean, running for 2028 president, though, after getting the governorship, I think that's not out of the cards as well for Kamala Harris because, look, you have so many people throwing their hat in the ring likely in 2028 against probably JD Vance. If Trump does not have a very significantly good presidency, if he has a divided presidency or a presidency that looked like that's going to be worse than his first presidency minus COVID, right? Because it's going pretty good before COVID. If you have a bad Trump presidency, I think a lot of Democrats will think, look, if I win this primary, I'm gonna get the presidency. So Kamala, with her previous big name rec, she could definitely take out a lot of Democrats in the process and just have hold that first place and win. But it would be difficult for her. I mean, she lost that first primary really badly. She would have to cobble together people from Iowa, New Hampshire, or maybe they'll start from South Carolina. We don't really know. But look, three paths for like we said. Thanks so much for watching this video. Comment down below any future video suggestions, like this video down below if you enjoyed. Subscribe to this channel for future uploads. And thanks for watching. Share this video with your family and friends.
See you guys.